Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Will the US and Israel bomb Iran? They've discussed scenarios, they've made plans, mostly to target Iran's nuclear facilities, and Tehran knows this. It is conducting drills to ward off potential attacks. But what has triggered this? Iran's recent losses, militarily, politically, and economically. The regime has been pushed to a corner and it wants a nuclear bomb as leverage. So will Iran get a bomb or will it get bombed? We'll look at how this is shaping up. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening both allies and adversaries. He's sympathizing with Putin and not ruling out military force to take Canada. Mark Zuckerberg is pushing his friend request to Donald Trump, so he has deleted fact checkers from Meta. Keir Starmer does not want a probe into the UK's so-called grooming gangs where Pakistani British men rape and abuse young girls. Over in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, they have no electricity. Locals are protesting against Islamabad. Sam Altman's sister says he sexually abused her. That's the OpenAI CEO. He now faces a lawsuit. In India, what happened to the Tejas jets? The Air Force is still waiting for the first deliveries. The Air Chief says it compromises their preparedness. Will TikTok be banned or sold? The deadline is January 19th. Why Singapore has passed a new law to allow the police to freeze bank accounts, and why Belgium is telling people to not eat the Christmas tree. Yes, it is a strange world. The headlines first. India's Foreign Secretary meets Taliban's acting foreign minister in Dubai. The two sides discuss bilateral relations and regional developments. Cricket cooperation between the two countries was also on the agenda. Officially, New Delhi is yet to recognize the Taliban government, which returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. Bangladesh revokes Sheikh Hasina's passport after its International Crimes Tribunal issued an arrest warrant against her. Last August, the deposed Bangladeshi Prime Minister had fled to India. This latest move by Dhaka puts New Delhi in a tricky situation. Just recently, India had extended Hasina's visa. Lebanese leaders hold talks to elect a new president. It comes a day ahead of a key parliamentary session. The army chief is widely seen as a front-runner, but there is no consensus despite key player Hezbollah being weakened by war. Lebanon has been without a president for more than 2 years now. Africa gets a new stock market. Ethiopia is set to open a stock exchange after a 5-decade gap. The East African country is looking to woo investors as it battles regional conflict while trying to recover from a civil war. Ethiopia's stock exchange will begin trading on Friday. And is Elon Musk interested in buying Liverpool? Yes, says his father. The English Premier League football club is owned by the Fenway Sports Group. Earlier, it had looked for external investments, but a full sale has never been considered. Iran is preparing for war, bolstering its air defenses, tightening security around nuclear plants, and conducting nationwide military drills. They're calling the exercise Iqtidar. In Farsi, Iqtidar means might. So this is basically a display of Iran's might. It involves the entire security apparatus of the country, from the army to the air force, and most importantly, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is the force that protects the regime, the IRGC. They are conducting drills in central Iran near the Natanz nuclear plant. It's one of their most important nuclear facilities. And here, Iranian forces practiced how to respond to strikes from an enemy.
As this aspect is one of the most decisive aspects of our defensive power, we have been focusing on it, and it was necessary to test the capabilities of our air defense in a situation close to reality.
They will conduct more such drills across Iran in the coming days, but the question is why now? Why is Iran holding this exercise? Because it feels threatened by its arch enemies, Israel and the United States. Tehran fears an attack, and there is good reason for this. Last month, Joe Biden considered attacking Iran. He held a meeting with his national security team, and they discussed strike options. They discussed the potential targets that they could hit inside Iran. They also talked about neutralizing threats from Iran. The Americans call this scenario planning. In the end, Biden did not order a strike. He hasn't ordered yet. But their plans are ready, very much in place, and can be used at any point in time. To make matters worse, Israel is making similar preparations. Reports say Israel too has drawn up strike options. Donald Trump's victory has emboldened them. Israel believes that even if Biden hesitates, Trump will support a direct attack on Iran. So they're counting on Trump to support Israeli strikes and to order American strikes on Iran. At least that's what Israel is said to be hoping for. Trump activating the plans that Biden has been reluctant to pursue. That is the hope, which brings us to the why. Why do the US and Israel want to attack Iran? Why now? What is the trigger? It is Iran's nuclear program. You see, the threat perception has shifted. Iran is expanding its nuclear program. It is said to be making rapid progress towards building a bomb. Tehran has stepped up uranium enrichment. By December 2024, it had uranium enriched to 60% purity. Reports say that they're now approaching 90% enrichment. And why does this matter? How is 60% different from 90%? Uranium enriched to 90% is weapons grade. This is what you need to build a bomb. So Iran is one step closer to a nuclear bomb. With this level of uranium, it can make 4 bombs. That's according to one estimate. France too has made an assessment. Their President Emmanuel Macron shared it himself. He says Iran's nuclear program, and I'm quoting, is on an irreversible course. Macron says it is nearing a point of no return.
The acceleration of its nuclear program brings us very close to the breaking point. Its ballistic program threatens European soil and our interests.
America and Israel share these concerns. Their strike plans target Iran's nuclear program, so if Tehran cannot be stopped, they want to destroy its nuclear facilities. And that is why Iran is conducting these drills, to prepare to ward off such strikes and to be able to protect its nuclear program. Tehran issued a statement. It came from Abbas Araghchi. He is the foreign minister of Iran. He said that they're ready for any kind of attack, and that if Israel strikes Iran, it will lead to a wider war in West Asia. Can these tensions be dialed down? Iran has given the West an opening, an out. It says it is willing to renegotiate the nuclear deal, the deal which Donald Trump had torn up in his last term as president. The nuclear pact that was supposed to stop Iran from developing a bomb. Trump walked out of it in 2018. Will he reverse his position now? There is no indication of that happening, which leaves Iran with almost no options. With Trump set to resume his maximum pressure campaign, Iran's proxies weakened by Israel's war, and Iran's economy battered by Western sanctions, it seems the nuclear program is the only leverage left with the regime. They won't give it up without a fight.
We need Greenland for national security purposes. If those hostages aren't back, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Donald Trump is all set for his second term. We can't say it'll be good, but we can say it will be entertaining. Remember those whirlwind Trump pressers from the pandemic? Well, they're back. He spoke to the media in Florida yesterday. It was billed as a pre-inauguration press conference, but frankly, it was a warning shot. To whom? Practically everyone, allies, rivals, friends, enemies, all of them are on Donald Trump's radar. He began with a low-hanging fruit, a promise to rename the Gulf of Mexico.
So we're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate.
Can he do that? In US documents, maybe they can call it the Gulf of America or whatever they want, but other countries do not have to follow because the US does not own this Gulf. It is not some inland lake or river. It is shared between Mexico, the US, and Cuba. We have global agencies to name such water bodies. Donald Trump alone cannot rename it. No point complaining, though, because unilateralism was the theme of Trump's presser. After water bodies, he turned to land. Trump is trying to take over 3 countries/regions, Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. And he is not ruling out military action.
Your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security.
Well, where do we start? Trump is talking about forceful land grabs, using the military to take over the Panama Canal and Greenland. Now, Greenland belongs to Denmark, and Denmark is a NATO ally. So Trump is basically threatening to attack a fellow NATO member. I don't think their charter covers that. And his argument is flawed. Trump says he needs Greenland for national security. But that's a slippery slope argument. Your national security cannot come at the cost of someone else's sovereignty. Putin is using the same argument in Ukraine. Xi Jinping will use the same argument in Taiwan. But before you know it, it's invasion galore. Plus, there is no evidence of a threat. It's not like China is deploying military assets on Greenland or Denmark is cozying up to China. None of that is happening. In fact, it is the Americans who already have a base on Greenland. So Trump's concern is imaginary. Of course, Denmark cannot mock the incoming US president, so they're politely rejecting his offer.
I, as a very close ally to the United States, think there is a reason to be pleased with the growing interest from the USA. But it has to go off in a way that is respectful towards the population of Greenland.
Next, we have the Panama Canal, built by the Americans in the last century, but now operated by Panama. 40% of America's trade passes through this canal, but Trump has 2 complaints. 1, that Panama charges them too much, and 2, that Chinese soldiers are manning the canal, which, by the way, is false. His solution? Take over the canal, possibly with force.
The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way.
And finally, we have Canada. It started off as a joke to mock Justin Trudeau, but now Trump seems quite serious about it.
We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it?
The Canadians have had enough. Even Justin Trudeau has grown a spine. He says there's a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will join the US, and that's the first time in years that Trudeau has made sense. But Canada is not off the hook yet. Trump may not use the military against them, but he is planning economic coercion, basically tariffs and trade curbs. Now, this is what Trump said to allies and neighbors, people you are supposed to like. What about the rivals? For them, Donald Trump had a mixed message. He had a stern warning for Hamas in Gaza, return the hostages by January 20th. or all hell will break loose.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out.
To Russia, he was understanding. Trump said that Ukraine was a red line for Putin, and he blamed Joe Biden for crossing it.
A big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that.
Not surprising at all. Trump spent hours threatening to take over Greenland and Canada. He can't just turn around and blame Putin for doing the same. Trump also had a message for NATO. He wants members to increase their defense spending by how much? 5% of their GDP. In his first term, Trump had a similar demand. He asked NATO countries to increase military spending to 2% of their GDP. Back then, a lot of them complained, but eventually they came around. In 2021, only 6 NATO members set aside 2% of their GDP for defense. Now it is 23 members, 23 out of 32. We can debate whether it's the right policy or not, but the fact is, Trump succeeded the last time. And his presser yesterday makes a couple of things quite clear. One, Donald Trump believes that he has the mandate to do anything. He won the popular vote for the first time. He swept the Electoral College. He also gave the Republicans a majority in Congress. All of this has fed Trump's ego. He wants to redraw the world map, rename countries, and rename centuries-old water bodies, and turn neighbors into states. This has gone beyond pressure tactics. That's one point. And two, expect fireworks once he takes office. He may not actually use the military to attack his allies, but his rhetoric will force realignments, both among allies and rivals. So brace for a period of chaos and unpredictability. Our next story is about Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta. Recently, he's been on a reinvention spree. He's gotten a new hairstyle. He has updated his wardrobe. He has taken up adventure sports. That sounds like a lot already, but Zuckerberg did not stop at that. He has changed himself, and now he wants to change the internet. Yesterday, Mark Zuckerberg released a statement. Meta is now letting go of fact checkers.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice, but the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system.
You heard him. Meta is doing away with fact checking. They will replace it with a community notes model, similar to what X is currently using. We'll get to Zuckerberg's reasoning in just a bit, but first let's look at what this move means. In 2016, Meta introduced a fact-checking program, and here's how it works. Say you post something on their platforms. If it looks fake or misleading, Meta will refer it to fact checkers. These are independent organizations. They assess the credibility of your post, and if they flag it as false, then your post will either be taken down or labeled with a warning. The initial idea was to curb misinformation, but Zuckerberg says there was too much bias at play.
So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship.
So Meta will now introduce a community notes model. How does that work? Well, this is where users decide if a post is real or fake. They can also fact check it. And that's not all. Meta will also allow more political content. Posts about elections, politics, or social issues will show up more on the feed. The reasoning? Well, Zuckerberg said a lot, but to sum it up, it's basically your prerogative now. You choose what you want to watch.
The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
Now, the timing is key here. In 2 weeks, Donald Trump will take oath as US president. Trump and Zuckerberg have had a rocky relationship. In his first term, Zuckerberg spoke out against Donald Trump. In 2021, Trump was banned from all Meta platforms, so it's been quite hostile. But this time around, Zuckerberg has different plans. After Trump won, he flew down to Mar-a-Lago. He dined with the US president-elect. He also donated $1 million to his inaugural fund. So did Trump and his politics dictate this latest move at Meta? Well, hear it from the man himself.
I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook. I think they've come a long way. I watched it. The man was very impressive. I watched it on Fox. I'm not allowed to say that. Say it?
Do you think he's directly responding to the threats that you have made to him in the past? With
Probably. Yeah, probably.
It's quite clear. Meta is bending with the political winds. Trump wants something in particular, Zuckerberg is happy to deliver. And technically, there's nothing wrong with it. A change of government affects every business. Some win, some lose, some incur huge losses. And Zuckerberg, at the end of the day, is a businessman. He wants his business to thrive, so he is accommodating Trump. You cannot blame him for bending the knee. But the problem is the business he runs. It is more than the sum of its parts. Facebook has 2.1 billion daily active users. Instagram has 500 million daily users. WhatsApp has nearly 600 million daily active users. So over 3 billion people log on to Zuckerberg's apps every day. And like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. This decision does not just influence Zuckerberg's businesses. It also shapes the digital landscape. Yes, community-driven moderation may sound democratic, but it's a system full of problems. Community notes are subject to mob rule. Often the loudest voices dominate the conversation, not the most accurate ones. So you need external checks and balances, else the internet can become the Wild West. It's emblematic of a larger existential crisis. For years, tech giants have grappled with this problem. How do you champion free speech while moderating content? Algorithms were designed to amplify engagement, but they ended up prioritizing sensationalism and divisiveness. Fact-checking was an attempt to course correct. It may have been flawed, but it did introduce some accountability in this chaotic landscape. Now, those safeguards are gone. Zuckerberg has steered Meta into uncharted waters. Will it enhance free speech, or will it further deepen the divisions? The answer, frankly, depends on who you ask, but one thing is for sure, the internet was already a battleground for truth, and with Zuckerberg's latest gamble, that battle just got a lot messier.
On the question of Elon Musk, I think most people
The new year is off to a rocky start for Keir Starmer. He's being accused of shielding grooming gangs. We talked about this last week. These gangs lure, groom and abuse teenaged girls. And the UK has a long history with them. Recently, the city of Oldham flagged this issue. They demanded a national public inquiry. But Starmer refused. Since then, pressure has been building on the Prime Minister, the UK's opposition parties, Elon Musk, American activists. All of them want Keir Starmer to order an inquiry. But the Prime Minister remains reluctant. He says there has been enough research and studies. What they need is action.
This doesn't need more consultation. It doesn't need more research. It just needs action. There have been many, many reviews, this constant asking for a further review. No stone should be left unturned. But frankly, it's time for action. Get on with it.
Today, the issue was also raised in Parliament. The UK government is pushing a new bill for children's safety. But the Conservatives want an amendment, one that will mandate a national inquiry on grooming gangs. Starmer has rejected the amendment. Reports say his party has asked its MPs to oppose it. But why this reluctance? Why not order an inquiry and be done with it? Well, it's hard to say exactly why, but we can think of a couple of reasons. Number one, a similar inquiry was completed in October 2022. It was led by Professor Alexis Jay, and it lasted 7 years. The UK government spent 200 million euros on that inquiry. It covered the exact same issues, child abuse and grooming gangs. This inquiry resulted in 20 recommendations, none of which have been fully implemented. So Starmer could have a point. You've just finished an inquiry 2 years ago. Why do you need another one? Even the chair of the last inquiry agrees.
No, I don't agree with that in the sense of requiring further and more detailed national inquiries into child sexual exploitation. We have learned quite a lot from what those reviews that have already been undertaken. But locally, people need to step up to the mark and do the sorts of things that have been recommended.
That could be one reason for Keir Starmer's reluctance. Reason number two is politics. A lot of these grooming gangs are made up of Pakistani men, but people are hesitant to call them out. They're scared of being called racist. That's what happened in the city of Rotherham. Grooming gangs abused more than 1,500 girls there. A lot of complaints were filed, but no action was taken. A later report blamed this inaction on so-called political correctness, the fear of being called racist. Is that same attitude holding Starmer back? Some in the UK believe so. More than 40% of Britain's Pakistani community voted for Keir Starmer and his party. He may be keen to protect that vote. Which brings us to the final possible reason, Starmer's own past. He was Crown Prosecutor from 2008 to 2013. This was the time when the grooming gangs were being exposed, including the ones in Rotherham. It was Starmer's job to prosecute these men, but his critics, including Elon Musk, say that he failed. The question is, are they right? Well, to some extent, yes. The Rotherham report directly blames the prosecutors. It says they were unwilling to take some cases to court. Why? Because they did not trust the evidence. Even the Home Ministry hinted at this. Let me quote from their report. This is what they said. In a speech in March 2013, the Director of Public Prosecution admitted that the approach taken by the criminal justice system had failed the victims of child sexual exploitation in the past. And who was this director in March 2013? Keir Starmer. So he admitted back then that problems existed, but he also fixed some of it. In 2013, Starmer upgraded the guidance on child sexual abuse cases. He made those cases easier to try. Under him, the number of prosecutions also increased. Nonetheless, his record is mixed. Maybe that is why he opposes another inquiry, to hide the skeletons in his closet. The fact is, we cannot be sure. But we will say this. You cannot politicize issues like rape. Both sides are doing that right now. The Conservatives are eagerly calling for another inquiry, but they were in power from 2010 to 2024. Why didn't they implement reforms? Why did they sit on the last inquiry? No answers. Similarly, Keir Starmer should not let woke ideas cloud his decision, because this is not random. Clearly, there is a trend of Pakistani grooming gangs. Race and religion are a factor. Let me take you back to 2012. One such gang in Rockdale was convicted by the court. Listen to what the judge said. All of you treated the victims as though they were worthless and beyond any respect. One of the factors leading to that was the fact that they were not part of your community or religion. Some of you, when arrested, said that this was triggered by race. That is nonsense. Some people will use these cases to sow divisions, to peddle Islamophobia, but the answer is not silence. The answer to that is not silence. The answer is a meaningful investigation. So our message to Keir Starmer is simple. Ignoring crimes because of race is not political correctness. Protecting young girls is. Our next story is from Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan. It is Indian territory, but it has been under Pakistan's control for decades. And as you would expect, Islamabad has managed to wreak havoc in the region. This time, it's the people of Gilgit who are paying the price. Protests are underway in the Hunza Valley. People are demonstrating in the town of Aliabad. It is the administrative center of Hunza. This is in North Gilgit, high up in the Himalayas, in the part known as the Karakoram Range. The Hunza Valley lies close to the border with China. It is China's gateway to Pakistan, literally. The illegal China-Pakistan economic corridor passes through Hunza. The region lies right in the middle of the Karakoram Highway. This is a vital trade route, facilitating overland trade worth billions between China and Pakistan. So you would think that the people of Hunza would be doing well, because they live along such an important highway. But here they are protesting, sitting out in the cold, braving daytime temperatures of -4 degrees Celsius and nights going down to -10 or 15 degrees, -15, for 6 straight days. The people of Hunza are doing all this to demand the bare basics. They are protesting because they want access to electricity.
जो हुंजा में हिसाब शिकन लोड शेडिंग है और जिसकी वजह से 24 घंटे में 30 से 40 मिनट बिजली हुंजा में आ रही है। रात को -15 से ज़्यादा सर्दी है। तुलबा को इंटरनेट मैसर नहीं, बिजली न होने की वजह से लाइटिंग का इशू है, हीटिंग का इशू है, कुकिंग का इशू है।
बिजली के सताए हुए तकरीबन 80,000 से ज़ायद ज़िला हुंजा की आबादी इस वक्त बिजली के एक बल्ब के जलने के लिए तरस रही है। इंतहाई हसास, इंतहाई दिफाई एतबार से, स्ट्रेटजिक एतबार से इंतहाई अहमियत का हामिल ज़िला हुंजा, जहाँ पे सी पे का गेट, चाइना के साथ पाकिस्तान की कनेक्टिविटी का रास्ता और इंतहाई हसास बॉर्डर के ये कम्युनिटी इस वक्त दिन में 1 घंटे 20 मिनट की बिजली के लिए तरस रहे हैं। अवाम गुज़श्ता 4 दिनों से सड़कों पर।
Hunza, like the rest of Gilgit-Baltistan, relies on hydroelectric power. There are a number of rivers and lakes in the region, so Pakistan took advantage of that. They reportedly built 127 hydropower stations in Gilgit-Baltistan. But there's a small problem with this grand scheme. Winter temperatures there go below 0 degrees Celsius. What happens to water at that temperature? It freezes. This is basic science. You would think that Pakistani engineers knew this. But alas, it seems they forgot, putting all of Gilgit-Baltistan at risk every winter. Islamabad did try some damage control. They also built about 34 thermal power plants in the region for just such an emergency. But they were overly optimistic. Pakistan thought it would be able to afford fuel, the fuel that goes into these thermal plants. But as we know, Islamabad has not been great at managing its finances. It has struggled to pay for the basics. And this is despite billions of dollars in loans from China, the Arab Gulf states, Western financial institutions, you name it. Islamabad owes everyone money. And despite this, it cannot afford to turn on its thermal generators. The result? The people of Gilgit-Baltistan have to freeze every winter, but this time they've had enough. The region is critical for trade. They know that they hold leverage, so they have decided to use it. They have blocked off the Karakoram highway. Trucks have been forced to stop and trade has ground to a halt.
रावलपिंडी से चले हैं, 3 दिन में हम इधर पहुंचे हैं सुस्त में। अभी सुस्त से हुंजा तक हमारा 6ठा दिन हो गया। ठीक है, यही बात है कि गवर्नमेंट की नालायकी कहें कि क्या कहें। किसी बंदे ने आकर, यहाँ हम भी देख रहे हैं, कोई बंदा इधर ऐसा नहीं आया मुद्दई जो वो पूछे यार ये रास्ता क्यों बंद है। यहाँ पे ये लोगों को तकलीफ है। इन लोगों की कमज़ोरी ये है, इन्होंने छोटी गाड़ी को ज़ाद किया हुआ है, इनका भी कसूर है। वो बड़ी गाड़ियाँ रोकी हुई हैं।
50 से 60 गाड़ियाँ लोड खड़ी है। इस गवर्नमेंट को ये फ़र्ज चाहिए, या मुस्तबिल के तौर पर धरना हो रहा है तो हम लोग को भी फैसिलिटी देना चाहिए ना। रूट पर करोड़ों अरबों रुपए की माल खड़ी गाड़ियाँ हैं, परवाह नहीं है इंतज़ामिया को। हम ये इंतज़ामिया से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, हमें मुस्तकिल एक रास्ता निकाल के हमें निकाल दें, नहीं है तो इधर 2.5 लाख के लिए पहुँच जाए।
The pressure tactic seems to be working. The Pakistani government is trying to negotiate with the protesters. They already offered to build a new power transmission line, but the people of Hunza have rejected the plan. They say it is another one of Islamabad's empty promises. The protests look set to continue until the people of Gilgit-Baltistan win or Islamabad decides to send in the military. That's what they did during similar protests last year in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Islamabad keeps resorting to brute force because it already spent all the money needed for any other solution. This is the sad fate of the people suffering under Pakistani occupation in Gilgit-Baltistan, in Kashmir, and let's face it, pretty much everywhere else in Pakistan. Now let's talk about Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He finds himself in fresh legal trouble, this time involving his sister. Her name is Anne, and she has sued him. Anne Altman has accused her brother of sexual abuse. The charges are extremely serious. Anne says her brother abused her when she was a child. The lawsuit includes allegations of rape. Sam Altman has rejected these charges. He has issued a joint statement along with his family, calling Anne's claims, and I'm quoting, entirely untrue. The Altman family says Anne has been going through mental health issues. There is no response from Anne yet, but her lawyers say that they want Sam Altman to face a jury trial. This man is not just the CEO of a tech startup, he is the face of the global AI revolution. What does this case mean for him? Our next report tells you.
Sam Altman is facing fresh legal troubles. This time, a family member has sued him. His sister Anne Altman has filed a lawsuit. The charges are serious. In a lawsuit filed in the US District Court, Anne Altman says her brother Sam sexually abused her. The allegations are serious and grave. Anne claims when she was barely 3 years old, Sam abused her several times in a week. The alleged abuses happened between 1997 and 2006. Anne has made similar claims before. She wrote a post on X back in 2021. She claimed she suffered sexual, physical, emotional, verbal and technological abuse from her brothers. In this post, Anne names her brothers Sam and Jack. But in her lawsuit, Anne has singled out Sam. She has demanded damages in excess of $75,000. The OpenAI CEO has denied these allegations. He issued a joint statement on social media along with his mother and 2 brothers. It calls Anne Altman's claims completely untrue. The letter from the Altman family offers a completely different version of events. It says Anne suffers from mental health challenges. She receives financial support from the family. They pay her rent and other bills. Anne is yet to respond to this statement, but last year in October, she did open up about her health troubles. On social media, Anne had claimed she was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a disease better known as elastic skin. This is primarily a disorder of the skin. There is no cure for the condition. It can also affect mental health. Patients with this disease are known to suffer from anxiety, depression, and mood disorders. Anne wants a jury to hear the case against her brother. The OpenAI CEO faces more lawsuits as well. SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk has sued him too. Musk was a co-founder in OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, the revolutionary AI model. ChatGPT sparked a global AI boom and made Sam Altman famous. Musk alleges that Altman breached a contract and abandoned OpenAI's original non-profit mission. Musk and Altman have been locked in a bitter feud over OpenAI for several months now. But the lawsuit from Altman's sister will only intensify the legal spotlight on the OpenAI CEO.
We've all heard that justice delayed is justice denied. But there's a new twist to it, courtesy India's Air Force Chief. He says technology delayed is technology denied. And what was he talking about? India's homegrown warplanes, especially the Tejas fighter jets made in India. Now, this plane has a long history. It was conceptualized back in 1984. The first plane took flight in 2001, yet deliveries have been delayed. The Air Force placed its first order back in 2010, but even that has not been delivered. The Air Chief says he is waiting for the first 40 planes.
First aircraft flew in 2001, 17 years. Then the induction started another 15 years later, 2016. Today we are in 2024. I do not have the first 40 aircraft also. So this is the production capability.
The Tejas is made by HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which is a state-run company. Clearly, the Air Chief is frustrated with them, and with good reasons. The Indian Air Force has long wanted 42 squadrons. Each squadron has around 18 aircraft. One squadron has 18 aircraft. That's how many we need to tackle our challenges. And how many do we have? just 30 squadrons. So the Indian Air Force is already low on firepower, plus our rivals are making gains. China recently debuted a mysterious stealth jet. Experts say it could be a 6th-generation fighter aircraft. Beijing calls it the J-36. Meanwhile, Pakistan is buying 5th-generation jets from China. Reports say around 40 of them. And where does India stand? Our most advanced jet is the French Rafale. They're classified as 4.5 generation, basically 4th gen, plus some enhancements. India is also making a 5th gen plane. It was approved in 2024 with a budget of 15,000 crore rupees, but don't expect deliveries before late 2030s. So the Air Force is facing twin challenges, one of quantity and the other of quality. And what's the solution? Normally in such situations, you buy from outside. Russia and the US already have such jets. You could just buy them off the rack. But recently, India has been trying to move away from imports. It has been trying to make it home. In the long run, this does guarantee our security. You won't have to depend on allies or friends. You'll be able to make your own jets. That's what India is aiming to do. But right now, things are moving too slow. So the Air Chief has come up with a solution. He wants more private players to enter the defense sector. And his logic is quite simple. Suppliers must be scared of missing deadlines. They must be scared of losing contracts. Only then will they deliver on time. Unfortunately, that is not the case right now. HAL has a virtual monopoly on advanced jets in India. It will take time to change that, and it won't be easy or cheap. The Air Chief admitted that yesterday. He said self-reliance will come at a cost, that sometimes the Air Force will have to spend more to buy from home. But to do that, you need efficient suppliers. The government has set up defense corridors to attract such players. At present, there are more than 300 private defense firms, plus 14,000 small and medium ones. Together, they are making a dent. Last year, private players made up 22% of India's defense output. That's the highest share in 8 years. If given time, India will reach self-reliance, but the key is to be proactive because our rogue neighbors are not waiting around. They are militarizing fast, which is something that the Air Chief also noted.
We have our own security concerns on the western and northern borders, with increased militarization by China and Pakistan. As far as China is concerned, it is not just the numbers. Even the technology is growing at a very rapid pace.
Of course, panicking won't help. In the 1950s and 60s, China lagged behind India. Today, they're making 6th-generation jets. If they can do it, so can India. Let's hope the Air Chief's warning serves as a wake-up call. The US and TikTok. It's a love story for the ages. TikTok started out as a lip-syncing app. It soon became a cultural phenomenon. And in America, it captured millions of hearts. In the US, TikTok has 170 million monthly users. That's almost half of the country's population. For many people, many of these people, TikTok is more than just an app. It is almost a way of life. But like most love stories, this one too seems short-lived because TikTok came with the China baggage. The app is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. That means national security concerns. So last year, US President Joe Biden signed a new law. It requires ByteDance to sell TikTok. And the deadline for that sale is January 19th, so in about 10 days from now. If they don't sell TikTok by then, it will be banned in America. No more viral dances for the US. Of course, the app has challenged it. The case is in court in the US Supreme Court. The hearing begins this Friday, but there is not much hope. At least not until January 20th. That's when Donald Trump takes office. And what does he think about TikTok? Well, let's say it's a feeling that keeps changing.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing some other things. There are a couple of options, but a lot of things are happening. So we'll see what happens. But we are looking at a lot of alternatives with respect to TikTok.
We'll take a look at TikTok. You know, I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok has something to do with it.
In 2020, Trump wanted to ban TikTok. In 2024, he says he has a warm spot for the app. He wants to take a look at the case. You could say it's classic Trump. But the bigger question is, will he do something about it? Trump has already made his case. He wants the Supreme Court to pause the law. That would give his office more time. Trump believes that he can find a political solution. But even then, it still depends on the top court in America. If they uphold the ban, TikTok is gone, no matter what Donald Trump says or does. And the app knows this. So they are trying to fight back, this time sneakily. TikTok is pushing its users to join Lemonade. This is a sister app, also owned by ByteDance. Lemonade is a mix of TikTok-style videos and photos. In fact, it is too similar to the app. And TikTok is using that to its advantage. If you have a TikTok account, Lemonade automatically signs you in. You can keep your TikTok handle. You can also keep the same bio. It even lets you transfer your followers. The plan is quite simple. Transfer TikTok users to another app, so that even if TikTok is banned, it still has a business. But there's a small problem here. The ban would apply to any ByteDance app, including Lemonade. This app will also be banned. Although for now, TikTok is betting on its odds. It hopes that regulators are so busy with TikTok that they forget about Lemonade altogether. It's a big risk to take. Do they have other options? As a matter of fact, they do. ByteDance can sell it, and it has takers. Some American businessmen are interested, like Kevin O'Leary and Frank McCourt. Kevin O'Leary is a Shark Tank investor. Frank McCourt is a billionaire. They're both teaming up to buy TikTok. Not the whole app, just the US business. But ByteDance is yet to agree, and most likely they won't. They have said repeatedly that they do not want to sell. So for now, it's a game of high stakes, a global tech giant, a divided court, and a president with a history of flip-flops. Will ByteDance sell? Will the ban be upheld? Or will an American buyout save the day? One thing is certain, the story of TikTok in America is far from over. Whether it ends in heartbreak or a new beginning is yet to be seen. We will keep you posted. Our next story is from Singapore. The island nation has just passed a novel law, possibly the first of its kind in the world. This law gives unprecedented powers to the police. It will allow the police to freeze bank accounts, not the accounts of a crime perpetrator, but the accounts of a potential victim. You see, Singapore is trying to crack down on scams. It wants to stop people sending money to scammers, even if it means freezing the victim's account. Is this the right call, or is this the hallmark of a nanny state? Our next report has the details.
The police are supposed to protect you. Their job is to prevent crimes. They have wide-ranging powers and can potentially make life-saving decisions. This is true all over the world. But how much power should they really have? How much should they be allowed to do to help someone, especially if that person does not want their help? This is a tricky question, and it seems Singapore has decided to err on the side of caution. They have given their police a new power, the ability to freeze a potential scam victim's bank account. There are a lot of online scams these days. You hear about things like romance scams or pig butchering. These scams are especially insidious. They involve building trust with the victim, luring them in with promises of love or friendship. And then, when the victim lets their guard down, the scammer proceeds to bleed them dry. The victims think they are helping a friend or a partner. They willingly give away their life savings until they are left with nothing. The worst part is, the victims often ignore the warning signs. They refuse to listen to their friends and family, and they may even be hostile towards the police or banking officials. Singapore has seen this all too often. Tens of thousands of people every year fall victim to such scams. Billions of dollars have been lost. And even when the police know a scam is underway, they have been powerless to save the victims. Well, not anymore. Singapore passed a new law on Tuesday. It's called the Protection from Scams Bill. It allows the police to stop victims from sending money to scammers by freezing their bank accounts. The police can now suspend money transfers, block ATM and credit facilities, and basically take away a person's financial independence, all for their own good. Reports say that Singapore may be the first country in the world to bring in such a law, to give so much power to their police. there will be some guardrails in place. The freeze will only be allowed as a last resort, after the police and banks try and fail to convince potential victims that they're being scammed. The police can then impose the freeze for 30 days. After that, they will have to renew the freeze. The police can renew it up to 5 times. After that, the potential victim will be given back control over their account. They will then be free to blow up their life savings on that special new friend that they have never met in person. Singapore's Minister of State for Home Affairs said, "We cannot handhold the victim indefinitely, nor do we have the resources to do so." So they know that there's such a thing as a lost cause. But even if Singapore won't handhold the victim indefinitely, it's willing to handhold them temporarily. This has divided opinion. Should the police be given such overarching powers? Should they be able to dictate someone's finances? Singapore knows that this is the nuclear option. It wants to only use it in case of emergencies. They say they expect to use it 5 to 10 times a month, so that's about 120 times a year. The country says that 50,000 scams are reported annually. But what if the victims resort to sending cryptocurrencies instead, or find another way to bypass their banks? Will Singapore keep giving more powers to the police every time a new loophole appears? This is a fight between personal autonomy and public safety. And Singapore has chosen to go with the latter.
The holiday season is for festivity, meals with the family and finding a place for that Christmas tree once the celebrations end. Usually you just toss it out or keep it for the next year, but a Belgian city has proposed another option. It wants to turn a post-Christmas dilemma into a foodie adventure. How? By eating your Christmas tree. Of course, this has not gone down well with Belgium's food agency. It is now asking people to not eat their Christmas tree. Our next report tells you why unusual trends like this show up and why a little common sense can go a long way.
Christmas is long gone, but if your Christmas trees are still around, here's a suggestion from the city of Ghent in Belgium. They urged people to recycle their tree. And of course, who doesn't like sustainability? But one of the suggestions included eating it. The council even had recipes for it. Flavoured butter and soup from the pine needles. Their point of reference, traditional Scandinavian recipes. Now, reused is the optimistic term for turning a festive plant into something that just might ruin your risotto or even end up poisoning you. So Belgium's food agency issued a warning. A warning one imagines they never expected to write. Do not eat your Christmas tree. It's bold and stark in case you thought nibbling on pine needles was a good idea. The food agency says not all Christmas trees are edible. In fact, most trees are treated with pesticides and other chemicals. So it's best to keep it out of your meals. Since then, Ghent's local council has deleted its post. But in case you thought this was weird, don't worry. The internet is like a grand buffet of trends. Some on TikTok were consuming borax, the household cleaner used to tackle laundry stains. According to them, borax helped cure health conditions. Then there was the sleepy chicken, which involved cooking chicken in cough syrup. Guess a nap after a meal has a completely different meaning with that one. Then there was healthy Coke, adding balsamic vinegar to your fizzy drink. And I'm sure you all remember the Tide Pods, those green and blue pods that everyone was popping like candy. What began as a joke quickly spiraled into a dystopian cautionary tale. So what's next? Making a tree-based smoothie or maybe a Christmas tree salad? Clearly, we're living in a dangerous era where common sense seems to be in short supply. So if this is the future of gastronomy, then humanity's taste buds are in for a wild ride. But jokes aside, while the internet loves to push the envelope, sometimes a little caution goes a long way. Recycling your tree is a great idea, but there are plenty of ways to go green without turning your Christmas tree into a side dish. Maybe next time, try those options. Or just use it to decorate your yard next year like a sensible person. After all, there's nothing wrong with a little festive nostalgia without the risk of food poisoning.
We told you about Donald Trump's threats from yesterday, but his press conference had a lot more. Trump dabbled in science as well. He talked about the size of the ocean. He talked about whales and windmills, and he talked about water scarcity. The only thing in common? He was wrong about everything he said. But at least now we can laugh about it. It wasn't as funny when Trump turned scientist in the middle of a pandemic, when he asked people to ingest bleach to kill the virus. Let me introduce Professor Trump.
But the 625 million acres, people can't realize it's like the whole ocean. It's called rain. Comes down from heaven, and they want to do no water comes out of the shower. It goes drip, drip, drip. So what happens? You're in the shower 10 times as long, you know. They're dangerous. You see what's happening up in the Massachusetts area with the whales, where they had 2 whales wash ashore in, I think, a 17-year period. And now they had 14 this season. The windmills are driving the whales crazy, obviously. Out of your homes and apartments, he wants them to be replaced by essentially electric heaters. We're also at a golden age of common sense.
Now it's time for Vantage Shots. Images that tell the story. Wildfires tear through the Los Angeles area, forcing at least 30,000 people to evacuate. In India's Kerala, an elephant turns violent during a festival, injuring 17 people. And the African circus performs during the Pope's general audience at the Vatican. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1992, US President George H.W. Bush vomited on the Prime Minister of Japan. This happened during a state dinner in Tokyo. During the dinner, Bush suddenly fell ill. He leaned forward, vomiting on the lap of his host. Bush then fainted as the Secret Service swiftly attended him. He recovered in moments, apologizing for the incident immediately. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.